have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me, as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron. Aaron, happy Independence Day.
Yeah, I'm an independent woman. Don't need no man. And
Well,
that's what we're celebrating.
You tell them, girl.
Yeah. Fuck, man.
So, surviving the heat out there, bud?
Oh, man, barely. Dude, I worked up a sweat just walking from my front door to my car, and it did not dissipate until I was halfway here. I had the AC on blast, but my car, I have a black car, and it just gets roasted in there.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even realize I was sweating until I felt a literal drop on my back, and I was like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, oh, I'm just fucking sweating up a storm. But
Yeah, it's been super crazy for me as well, because I feel like I've been dripping sweat, and usually I'm not one of those people that's dripping sweat going, wiping it from our face.
Our personalities aren't sweaty. Some people have a sweaty personality
where
they're just always sweating.
Yes.
That's not us. It's just fucking 100 degrees out.
No, it
3 weeks now.
No, it's super hot, and unfortunately we're not out of the woods yet with that specifically, but I do think that the heat and little patriotic colors will serve as a good overall arching theme today for our film House of a Thousand Corpses. So I know I told you last episode that this is actually the first film to be directed by Rob Zombie.
Mr. Robert Zombie.
Yes, and what is your relationship to the Robert of Zombies?
Man, I can't think of a Rob Zombie song. I've never seen a Rob Zombie movie. I don't think he's a real zombie.
So really, that's surprising. I'm surprised you never even heard from your other friends or anything like that.
I've heard about him. If you probably played one of his most popular songs, I might be like, oh, that's Rob Zombie, okay. But I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah, no worries. So my relationship to Rob Zombie was kind of like yours for the most part. It wasn't until about sophomore year of high school whenever I really started listening to him, because again I was kind of in my deep emo phase where I'm grabbing anything dark, edgy, metal sort of thing and just consuming it. And I had heard about it a couple of times from some people I knew, and so I knew the name for a while. But the interesting thing about it is that the reason why I know about this movie in particular is because of two things. First off, I had seen the poster before, which I could show you the poster for it because it doesn't really spoil too much of anything.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the poster right there. But that always stuck out to me anytime I saw it there. But the other one, which I won't spoil too much about, you'll get to meet this character, but there's this one particular character named Captain Spaulding, and there's this one infamous picture that I would constantly see of him anytime they're talking about great horror icons, and he would pop up, and it's just because he is such a unique looking character, which again, I won't spoil too much since I kind of want you to go into this.
Tennis ball?
Yes. Yeah, he's a rolling tennis ball. Rob Zombie had some weird horror taste, but I tell you what. But yeah, so I would always see his face and I'm like, oh, who's that dude? Where's he from? And then I would learn it's Captain Spaulding from House of a Thousand Corpses. And I'm like, cool, I need to check it out. And it wasn't until years and years later till I finally was like, man, I just need to watch this movie. And I think I watched it in 2019, I want to say, something like that. And yeah, and so then I dove in and got to experience House of a Thousand Corpses. And so it's very going to be an interesting thing, because I feel like it's been a little bit of a while since we've watched a film that you're having zero context about.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't know anything about Rob Zombie too much. Don't know anything about it, as opposed to everything else where you've had maybe an inkling of a clue, or maybe American Werewolf in London. You're like, well, I guess there's going to be a werewolf. But with House of a Thousand Corpses, you're like, what does that mean?
Are there actually 1,000? I'm going to count.
Yeah.
When the corpses start going on the screen, I'm gonna keep a count. I'll let you guys know if there's 1,000 or not.
Do that. So, I guess without further ado, Aaron and I are going to bid y'all adieu for the time being.
How do you spell adieu? Off the top of your head.
Adieu.
This has been the Poppin the Scary Spelling Bee podcast. Cole, you're our winner.
Learn how to spell French words.
Adieu.
Adieu.
It's an iconic French word because you actually pronounce most of it because it's all vowels.
Yes. It does help that I try to, at the very least, say it respectably. Anyways, with that speaking done, let's go watch House of 1,000 Corpses and tell the viewers what we think, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, okay, we'll be right back. Don't move away from that channel.
Casa de 1,000 muertos.
Howdy, folks. You like blood, violence, freaks of nature? Well, then come on down to Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen. Yeah, see the alligator boy. Ride my famous murder ride. Most of all, don't forget to take home some of my tasty fried chicken. Ha ha! It just tastes so damn good.
And we are back from watching House of 1,000 Corpses, and Aaron.
Yeah.
What's up, bub?
Man, I gotta say, I did the math, did the numbers. There's no goddamn way there was 1,000 corpses in that house.
Are you sure about that?
Outside, maybe. But even then, where do you draw the property line?
That's true. That is true.
It's not the property of 1,000 horror.
I know we're big proponents of not spoiling the viewers before talking about the film, but
Yeah.
spoiler alert: there is not a house made of 1,000 corpses.
No. Nor are there 1,000 corpses packed into a house that could fit them.
So that has to be a very rude awakening for you, because
Yeah.
you look at horror films, Halloween. It does place on Halloween.
Sure.
Makes sense. Friday the 13th takes place Friday the 13th.
Texas
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Chainsaw Massacre. There's a massacre in Texas with a chainsaw. I mean, come on. We had an established thing going here. American Werewolf in London.
At least there's that. It was being honest.
They tell you what's going to happen. Alien, there's an alien. Shining, there's the Shining. Come on, man. We have a thing going.
Man, it's brutal, dude. It's brutal to be misled. So apologies. You were waiting for that House of 1,000 Corpses.
0 out of 10.
Dang.
0.
Well, it was a nice try, folks. We'll do better on the next episode, ladies and germs. And so, anyways, so other than being disappointed that the film's title was misleading, any opening statements, thoughts about the film before diving into the nitty gritty?
I mean, I did mention, we were joking. I said Texas Chainsaw Massacre a second there. This is a very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-y film.
Mm-hmm.
Very inspired, I would say, by the massacre that happened in Texas by a chainsaw.
Yep, you are not incorrect. Rob Zombie was heavily inspired by Texas Chainsaw Massacre specifically. To the point where he was actually friends with Tobe Hooper, who directed it. And what's great is that one of the actors in the film, which we'll talk about, his name is Bill Moseley.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the character Otis, which, in case you don't know who that is, he is the very angry individual with long strands of hair. He's actually in Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. And so this was, I think, kind of a way to wrap it back around.
Yeah.
So, it's very funny you picked up on those elements there, because Rob Zombie was definitely, I think, inspired by Texas Chainsaw.
I mean, it has a lot of the same, it's got the spooky family with the house of horrors, and then the kids that are on a road trip and they get trapped there, and, and there's also a place that sells not barbecue, but fried chicken, that they stop for gas in the beginning, and that's how they get led to this house. It's all, it feels like a spiritual successor in a lot of ways. But.
No, for sure. I think you definitely hit the nail on the head there. So it's kind of funny just feeling like we're revisiting that sort of vibe there, since that's the first movie we started this podcast episode journey on. Very observant of you. I wouldn't expect no less of you, Aaron.
My doctor says I have 20/20 vision. Actually, he doesn't say that because I don't go to an optometrist because I have 20/20 vision. I don't need eye care.
You see everything.
I see it all.
All right, well, that's
I eat
good.
4 carrots a day, 3 of them anally. It all goes to my eyes.
Warning,
Baby, vitamin A.
we do not recommend shoving 3 carrots up your bum.
Not at the same time. You gotta one at a time, like a log ride. Moving on.
Please move on.
One day, my parents are gonna find this podcast somehow. Someone's gonna tell them, and they're gonna listen, and they're gonna be like, "I knew I was disappointed in him for something." Something. Really deep down.
I want to assure Aaron's parents, he is a fine man with good taste.
You can't taste from your ass, actually. So the carrots are not part of my diet for that reason.
No taste glands up there?
No.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
God for that.
Yeah,
Can you
maybe Dr. Satan could help out with that.
Well, he's done all kinds of experiments.
Yes, for sure. And so why don't we talk more about it? Because I feel like my overall thoughts about the film is this is my second time watching it, and I was not prepared the first time I watched it for what was in store, and the second time round was kind of enlightening because it's like the movie fermented for me specifically, and certain parts that I thought were excellent were even better, and then other parts that I thought were even more So
really?
Yes. So there is. I feel like it had a fermented effect overall for the film because I've seen it like probably 2 years ago, probably around there that time, and so during that time, I feel like. Oh man, it's coming up on 3. Holy smokes, time's flying way too fast. Wow! So I feel like, again, certain aspects are a lot better than I remember it, and then there's a lot of aspects that are not so great from what I remember. So why don't we dive into the general story of this, which fortunately I have had practice on, because, fun fact, one of my first videos I did whenever I was doing video reviews was actually House of a Thousand Corpses. Yeah, so I've definitely typed out a whole review and gave my whole spiel, but this will be a lot more in-depth, and I'm excited to dive into it. So,
homework assignment for the audience at home: find the parts where he actually splices the audio from that video.
Yeah, it's always
like, well, let me tell you my opinion. House of a Thousand. You hear the audio change?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this review differs compared to my video review, so that'll be exciting to compare and contrast.
Yeah, but tell me about it.
Yeah, but let's talk about the story. So basically, House of a Thousand Corpses focuses on this group of friends basically traveling the countryside, just trying to help write a book about oddities and sideshow attractions. And as they're driving along, they run low on gas, but lo and behold, Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen is just off the road, and not only that, but he has fried chicken and gasoline to boot. Woo! And so while they're visiting this attraction, they are very curious about it, and with Captain Spaulding's lore spilling, spitting the rhymes, everything, he tells them the tale of Dr. Satan, who was hung from a tree for all the crimes he committed experimenting on folks and everything else, but the body went missing. And so the group of friends is like, oh, we should definitely check it out. And by group of friends, I mean the one individual that is filled with bad ideas 24/7.
Yeah, he does a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, everything is his fault.
And so as they're trying to find Dr. Satan's last known location, they run into a hitchhiker, which they decide to give a ride home to. And pretty much from that point on, the film pretty much fires off kind of similar, again, to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, you know, again, I feel like it wasn't a beat. Yeah, it wasn't like a beat per beat thing where I'm like, I feel like I'm just watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like it definitely, again, I feel like it is definitely more of a homage as opposed to ripoff.
Yeah, definitely its own film, but just, heavily inspired.
But story-wise, overall, I think it works out perfectly fine. The only issue I have with the general narrative is the fact that I feel like the narrative, say it's like twine, right?
Yeah,
you know how it's like a bundle of string?
Mhm.
It starts off pretty solid there, and then it gets to a point where it just starts getting frailed and split off everywhere.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah,
And at the very end, there's like the tiniest, like, you know, like whenever you're barely trying to tie a knot with little to nothing, that's how I feel the film is.
yeah.
And, you know, I feel like it wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing specifically there, because, you know, I wouldn't say Texas Chainsaw Massacre had like a straightforward narrative, but I mean, it's pretty much like they end up in a bad situation and are trying to get out. And
Right.
while it's true for this film throws in so many more elements there, as opposed to the traditional kind of cat and mouse sort of chase there specifically.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, crucially, like, really, they don't discover, because they kind of go missing one by one. You know what I mean? And it's so, like, the plot is kind of progresses naturally as, like, okay, well, we're at this place. Okay, well, where did this person go? Okay, well, I'm going to check out this house. And then it's really not until the end that it's just chase scene, you know what I mean? Trying to escape. This film, like, they get caught in the bad situation pretty early, and the plot just kind of goes to a halt after a certain scene that I can't really mention without spoiling it, but it just grinds to a halt, and there's not much escaping happening or attempting to escape, honestly. It's just like you're watching you're walking through a haunted house, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely, I feel like, again, the protagonists are just put in situations to where they're unable to escape there. Like, anytime they try to, it's immediately stopped by one force or another there. So it's not one of those annoying things like, oh my god, just leave, but it's more like they're stuck there and you're forced to be stuck with them as well.
It's not like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a lot of the escaping's like literally running from a guy with a chainsaw. You know what I mean? Or literally running for their lives. And there's not a whole lot of that in this film.
Yeah. And I feel like the freedom of Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes from the fact that the people individually, you know, they're picked off one by one. And again, people don't realize it until it's way, way too late.
Right.
So I feel like there's still like a narrative being able to follow suit as opposed to just being kind of stuck there, which again, and here's the interesting thing, since we've watched so many films together, you know, we can compare kind of horror genre tropes to another, because say for instance Saw, the two main protagonists are trapped in a room together, but there's so much other elements that are helping drive the story, and even though you feel like they're trapped, they're put in a situation to where they are meant to escape, so that helps with there. But as opposed to this, they're kind of just stuck, period. Hardly any way out whatsoever. And if there is a way out, it's kind of just by happenstance. It's just kind of more so random as opposed to cunning and wit.
And there's also, like, even though they're stuck, and I think I could say this without giving too much away, they're not really stuck in one location for very. It's like the scenes transition quick, and it's just like, now we're here, now we're doing this, now we're in this place, and it's like all, you know, in the same general area, but they're not like, it's not like Saw where they're stuck in a room and they're trying to get out of the room, and that's the plot. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. But yeah, I feel like while dancing around the narrative, I feel like while the story overall, I think it's fine. It's just more of the execution of the plot towards the middle part to the end, where it's kind of like, it just becomes a little disorienting to try to follow.
I think, and I can talk about this in spoilers, but I think there's specifically one scene that they could just move to much later in the movie, and it would like still have that tension element. You know, you'd still have the plot, and you could drag that part on a little bit more, and still have that plot curve. But they kind of cut one of the, because there's, you know, once they get caught, there's kind of a stranded, like double-stranded plot going on, and they just sort of end one of the strands, and so now it's just like these people are stuck.
No. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I feel like we've kind of, without spoiling too much, have given our overall thoughts on the narrative. Let's talk more about, I guess we might as well talk about the main four individuals there.
I feel like we could blow through this too, because one of my criticisms is they don't really develop these characters.
No, not too much. Let's talk about one of the people that's probably the most noteworthy out of the four, and that's Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were definitely surprised to see him in the film specifically.
Yeah, it's Rainn Wilson.
Yeah, and I feel like Rainn, I know he's trying to break out of that typecast mold of being Dwight just because he did it so well there. But, and while I do feel like he is his own individual, it's so hard also not to see him anything else but Dwight from The Office. Yeah, that's
one of those, and it's just hard to...
Yeah, which that's no fault of his, because this came out 2003, and I think The Office came out afterwards, right?
Yeah, well, see, and I wasn't really getting... I thought, obviously you see Rainn Wilson, and you think Dwight, just like, of course. But I didn't think, like, there wasn't really moments in the movie where I was like, this is Dwight, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I have that with other people. He was like a nerdy guy, but he wasn't doing any sort of, like, Dwight-y shit.
Yeah, it's like, again, just kind of like a body there, like, kind of a little more responsible one. Because I gotta be honest, like, I've seen this movie twice, and if you had told me to name all 4 of the characters' names, I could have not told you. Nope. Which I think is definitely kind of...
I can't name any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not any of those 4.
Yeah, no, understandable.
I can name the family and stuff, and I can name the dude at the gas station. I can't name the 4 main characters.
Yeah, and his name was Bill Hudley.
Bill.
Yeah, such a memorable thing. But again, I don't feel like he necessarily does a bad job. I feel like he just kind of fits the bill. It's like, we need...
Fits the bill? He really fits the William.
Whoa. Anyhow, yeah, I don't feel like he does a bad job, but it's not like one of those things like, oh man, I'm loving his performance. Because again, he's just kind of the straight man for the most part. He kind of has a little bit of bantered with Captain Spaulding, which we'll definitely talk about later.
He's just like this nerd who's like trying to write a book and travel the country, and he's a little bit more responsible than the folks next to him and his buddies. Mm-hmm. He was my favorite of the 4, to be honest with you.
You mean you didn't love Chris Hardwick as Jerry?
Yeah, I can think of at least 3 things he did wrong that got them all killed.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I feel like overall with Rainn Wilson, I've said most of what I can about it is like, yeah, he does a fine job. Yeah. Chris, I feel like Chris himself, Chris Hardwick as Jerry, does the role well, but it's not a great written role, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think he acts it well. It's just, it's one of those, like, it's like one of those frustrated characters, like, okay,
Yes, I feel like he's that jokester idiot character that you see in most horror films, but again, it's like, just very much a caricature of it.
I think it only gets like a little bit frustrating in this movie because like it's not just like one little whoopsie he does. He's just like constantly whoopsieing them into the grave. Like
yes,
it would be one thing if it was like, "Oops, I forgot to fill up the tank. My bad. I'm irresponsible." But it was like 3 things in a row.
No, he just kept screwing it up, and it's not even like one of those things like you can have characters that screw up and just be like not hate them, but this is just genuine like
in the span of like an hour that we see them in the beginning, like 3 major fuck ups that happen where I'd just be like, why did I bring this guy on this trip? Like, you can walk home.
No, that's exactly it. I felt like he was definitely untrustworthy there to where I'm just like, yeah, I would not want to hang around this dude.
But honestly, I guess also it's Rainn Wilson's fault because he's the one that told him to do these things. And why would you tell Jerry to do things? Why wouldn't you just do them yourself?
True. I mean, he has to be at fault totally.
If you know that this guy fucks everything up, why do you give him all the important tasks?
Yeah. And so I feel like whenever it comes to those characters, they definitely have like the nerdy, quirky dude, and then you have the jokester, irresponsible dude. And then we jump over to Mary Knowles, played by Jennifer Jostin.
Which one is that?
Yeah, great question. See, great question. So I'm pretty sure, so she was the one that was the absolute jerkwad, to put it politely.
So Rainn Wilson's girlfriend?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the one that was just very hateful all the time.
Everything.
And to be fair, I understand a little bit, but sometimes I'm just like, you know you're in this position. Why are you still going down this path? Like, pump the brakes.
Okay, I'm glad that I'm not the only one that thought that, because I was like, she's kind of a bitch.
Yeah, okay, I didn't want to say that out loud and you'd be like, whoa, hold on. We go everywhere, but we do not call women that. But it's true. It's true. She is very much unlikable, and it's just kind of serving as poking the bear.
It'd be one thing if, like, okay, once you're in the house with the people that are killing you, you know, you're a bitch. But it's just like from the very start, literally her first lines when she gets woken up, she's just a bitch from the beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's her whole entire character is just being that, which is terrible because, again, it doesn't make you attached, doesn't make you want to hope for survival. And again, I know that's kind of like the fun with some films, like, you know, it's like Friday the 13th, seeing that one person you don't like die.
Yeah.
That's a little gratifying, but I didn't feel any, like, sort of, like, inkling of it. I'm just like, I just don't even want to see you.
Right, exactly. Like,
in this film.
that you're
Yeah.
on screen. Like,
That's exactly it. It's just like the I don't care thing. So, and, you know, again, I don't feel like it's really the actress's fault. I feel like it's just the way the characters are written there is very poor, which leads us to our final girl, Denise Willis, played by Erin Daniels, which really she's just trying to be polite.
Yeah. I thought she
that's
did
about
fine,
it.
and she was, like, likable in the moments you saw her, but really just, you didn't see her. She didn't have, like, any lines. She didn't... Is a really weird choice for her to, like, be the one that lasted as long as people lasted, you know, because it's just like, I'm not attached to this person at all.
Yeah,
But...
and again, it's just one of those things that this is none of the actors or actresses' fault. I feel like this more falls on the script there, which it is written by Rob Zombie, which totally makes sense on why things are written the way they are, both character-wise and story-wise.
It just kind of came off as, like, someone that doesn't know how to write women. Like, the women existed as girlfriends to the two dudes who were, like, head characters.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, to his credit, this is his first film, but at the same point, he's obviously a big fan of other films. And while I can't say that, like, you know, again, relating to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the survivors were, like, oozing with character.
No, yeah. Those
like,
were
at
super
least they
fleshed
felt
out.
a little more defined and unique.
Yeah.
Kind of more organic as opposed to, like, more of these characters. So, again, I wish there was more to say, but just, they did their job.
They were characters.
Yes, for sure. But
the characters that were, like, cooler were all, like, the bad guys.
Well,
quote, unquote.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like Rob Zombie, and I honestly believe this is true, he had more fun writing the antagonist of the film than he did the protagonist. Specifically.
I feel like that was where it all was generated. He's like, I want to do this film with these bad guys, and they're going to do these things, and then they're like, well, I guess I have to put some fucking survivors in there, I guess. And then, you know, and then they felt like all the attention was paid to everybody else except for the main characters.
Yeah. And so, jumping into this, I guess we might as well, since we already talked about the main four, talk about the one name that we've thrown around the most, and that's Captain Spaulding, played by the late Sid Haig. And I gotta be honest, he's my favorite character in the whole movie.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. I mean, there's a reason why you see his face everywhere. He just has that iconic look to him. And like I mentioned, you probably know which face I'm talking about, but this is the face that I kept seeing there. It's so mesmerizing and captures your eye there. And so, again, I just feel like he is easily the best character in the film, hands down. Fight me.
Right. He's very well written, very well acted. Yeah, he's morally ambiguous. You don't really know, you know, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? You know, it's just like, you know, he's just like doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I feel like it's just everything about him. Again, this is my favorite part of the film. Anytime he's there, and anytime you're at Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen, like, everything about it oozes character. I love that set piece. I love how he sells fried chicken and also has a walkthrough attraction filled with, like, basically these murderers throughout history. It's just, like, he's the whole reason why out of the trilogy, like, Rob Zombie's trilogy he has of these films, this one's my favorite. And we could talk more about it whenever we get to editing and stuff, but just everything about Captain Spaulding I love. Like, I just feel like his character is so defined, so unique, and again, I feel like it's just a brilliant character for Rob Zombie to write out, but not to mention, Sid Haig is just also killing it. Like, he knows exactly what it is and eats up every % of the role. And again, I love his moral ambiguity because, again, he's like chummy with the main group whenever they show up. And then at points, he just gets dead serious.
Right.
Looks like he's about to, like, go off on them. But then he just bounces back.
Yeah.
It's, like, very, like, a bipolar sort of thing. And I just... Again, I can't get enough of it whatsoever.
Bipolar's a good way to put it, because I feel like I was thinking about how you could easily describe him as unhinged. He's definitely unhinged. But then you could also easily describe him as, like, very down to earth, like, connected.
Yeah.
Because he's also just like, yeah, I'll level with you. You know, like, he's one of those guys. But so it's like, okay, like, which is he? He seems both incredibly stable and knows exactly what he's doing, and he's also just off his fucking rocker at the same time.
Well, it's crazy, too, because that opening scene, aside from, like, this weird intro they have focusing on Dr. Wolfenstein, I believe it is, there, it opens with one of his commercials promoting his fried chicken and his business drawing. And again, it focuses on him, which is so interesting because the main 4 characters don't come till, like, after there's, like, that big scene with Captain Spaulding, which I absolutely love. Again, I felt like that was probably the best way to introduce a film, because again, the first time I watched it, I was hooked immediately. Second time watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is even better. This is even better. And I love the way that they portray it. And again, like, maybe we could talk a little bit more about it. But again, I feel like the way they introduce his character, they never definitively show what side he's really on, like whether he's malevolent or just, again, down-to-earth dude, like you mentioned there. It's just this big back-and-forth motion, which I think, again, makes him such a compelling character that every time he popped on screen, I'm just like, yes, more Captain Spaulding, please. So, and again, he's probably one of my favorite horror icons because of it. It's just kind of unfortunate that the rest of the film isn't really focused on him too much there.
Right.
Which, again, it's not that everybody else sucks in comparison to him, but kind of do a little bit.
I mean, he's the only one that really knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, I feel so. But I mean, and to the other credits, there are other interesting individuals I feel like in this film, without spoiling too much, they become more defined in the sequel. Meanwhile, I feel like Captain Spaulding's one that was just hit out of the park first try.
Right. There are a couple others that are at a really high bar, but I would agree that Captain Spaulding's at the highest.
Yeah. So it just makes me super disappointed because whenever I watched this film back in 2019, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to meet Sid Haig. And then a couple months later, he passed away at age 80. So it was just one of those things that I'm like, bummed out I wasn't able to meet him. Because I also heard he was like, I feel like this is very true with people that play these kind of characters, but I've heard he was a very nice, down-to-earth dude, like genuinely easygoing. Apparently he had like a rough career because he had acted at an early age, then kind of had a falling out with Hollywood, and Rob Zombie is the one that kind of reintroduced him back into the spotlight. And I'm glad he did, because like I said, this is just absolutely the number one reason why you should watch this movie. I'm going to spoil that ahead of time, that if you're wanting to see a great character, this is one of them there in horror history. So let's stop praising Captain Spaulding as much as I want to, and try to get to all the other characters there. I feel like we should talk about the said hitchhiker, which is Baby, played by Sherry Moon, who's actually the wife of Rob Zombie. And her character is very interesting because she balances the line of being so annoying, but yet so captivating at the same time.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say when we got to her that this is how you write an annoying character. She's very like Harley Quinn-ish, where you're just like, shut the fuck up, but I also keep talking.
Yes, that's the perfect thing. Because again, it's like one of those things that you would like. Anytime like a character is supposed to be annoying, chances are it's usually done bad, and you're like, this is just terrible. But there's something about Sherry Moon's performance, and apparently this was her first debut role. Really? She had never acted like in any other film. This was the first thing, and I think she also, even though Sid Haig like killed his role, she also does a really good job because again, she kind of goes off at the beginning, kind of being like more ditzy, like haha, sort of silly thing. But as it continues on, she really manages to turn up the menacing mode.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was very well done on Sherry Moon's part there, which I know we could talk kind of a little bit more into spoilers, since I know kind of after they pick her up, that's where things are starting to
Unravel. Yeah.
spin out of control there. But I feel like she does a very good job there and really kind of screws with them, both physically and mentally. Which again, I feel like, again, it's just Rob Zombie, I think, as you mentioned, had these ideas for these characters and was able to perfectly put it down on pen and paper there. And, again, I think he kind of struggled on how do I write a film about these there. So then he kind of had to come up with 4 individuals to kind of go throughout the story and be our vehicle for experiencing this whole crew of not normal people. And I'm guessing you're going to hold off on other stuff she does till spoilers
I guess so.
there.
I just say she's like, a lot of her character can be boiled down to like crazy sexy.
Yeah. Which again, I
sort
think,
of scary middle that meets.
I think that's definitely kind of like a good thing as well, just to kind of have that sexual allure, because it also proves to be even more dangerous. Because
and it's also
again,
it's surprising, she's probably the best written female character in this movie, and it's because and she's also the most sexualized, but it's not like, because I mean there's a lot of, it's a horror movie, there's a lot of tits and stuff in it, but a lot of it's like the sexualization is happening, like the woman does not have the agency, you know what I mean? It's just like we're looking at a naked cheerleader here or whatever, you know what I mean? But she's the one that like controls her sexuality, and she's in control in like every scene she's in, unless another member of the family's in control. But
yeah, no, understandable.
And I'm like, that's how you write like a sexualized character. That's not just like, look at my tits. She's like, that's like part of her personality, and it's like a well-rounded, fleshed out one.
Yeah, and it's actually funny because freshening up on the history of this film, apparently there was even a lot more stuff Rob Zombie wanted to throw in that was very overly sexualized. Like, again, you only... Because that's the thing we'll talk about with this film, editing-wise, it doesn't tell the story straight laced. It definitely throws a lot of crazy imagery your way.
It's pretty artistic in a way, yeah.
No, definitely, for sure. And one of the scenes is, like, her with a skeleton, and she got down and dirty with it to the point of using the skeletal hand to
get boned.
Yes, get boned. That's a perfect way to describe it there. But they cut it out because Universal's like, no, we're not putting this in. And apparently, like, Universal gave Rob Zombie all sorts of heck trying to create this film.
I believe it.
And Rob Zombie's relationship overall with Universal is pretty mixed, because it's like one of those things that's like, we don't really want to make this film, because he filmed it like early on, but it wasn't released till 2003. I think he started filming in 2000, I want to say, and it took him forever to try to get him to release this movie. And then once it became like a cult hit, of course, now Universal's like pumping out the merchandise and licensing.
This was all us.
Oh, studios win again.
Boy, do it all right all the time.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Sherry Moon, again, can't say nothing else. It's like that thing where her character gets on my head, but again, I think she's a perfect addition, and I feel like I want to see more of what she does.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and trying to go down to somebody who's definitely not as fun loving is Otis, played by Bill Moseley, which again we talked about. And his character is definitely kind of no jokes about it, just pure hatred and anger, I feel like, seeping off this character.
Like, he's interesting too, because he's got, and this is the other one that I put at the same bar as Sherry Moon's character, but just like, he's like, he's not as fun, but he's really interesting. He's philosophical. He's got motivations. He's passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
And he's He's the one that kind of holds things together and gets shits done in a way.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see that way, because whenever we watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which will be sometime in the future, still trying to work out the schedule there, it's interesting to see his performance in that film versus this film, because again, even though like Rob Zombie, you know, is clearly having an inspiration to theme this sort of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, his character in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and this character drastically different.
Oh wow, okay.
There. And so it was very interesting to kind of compare between the two, because again, he's very much dead serious. Sometimes throws like a little bit of a joke, but it's not like the level of Baby, where it's just kind of more like goofy fun.
Mr. J?
Yeah, exactly. No, because I feel like, again, it's just easy to make everybody super jovial, because again, for the most part, these people that are psychotic, you know, again, you kind of get opened up to them either being super bubbly or deadpan straight serious. And I feel that the character Otis is really good in this film. I feel like his peak character is in The Devil's Rejects, which maybe we'll watch that in a future film. I feel like that, and so maybe like coming back to watching this film has kind of tampered it a bit there. But again, it still hits the high bar there. He's very much an intimidating force there, and even like straight from the get-go, whenever he meets up with the group there, he's pretty much straight-laced, straightforward, to the point there. And again, like as the film continues on, it's just, again, it just starts to become even more concentrated there.
Right.
So
He's super like punk revolutionary too.
Very much so. I mean, he wears pretty much a t-shirt that says "Burn this flag."
I want that shirt. That's awesome. That's sick.
Yeah, and so I feel like it's definitely kind of interesting. And again, it's very interesting to see this sort of antagonist here that, again, has definitely more, like you said, more of a philosophical base on why he does what he does. It's not like just one of those things he's like, I don't know, I'm just bored.
Right. I'm a crazy guy that
Or
kills
he's
people,
just,
you know?
Yeah, you know, I feel like it's not just, I want to kill people. It's just like, I want to kill people because...
I want to send a message.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like he's definitely a great character, again, to have in this film, because he's kind of the orchestrator of stuff. I feel like he's kind of the person able to call shots and do what needs to be done, whereas the rest of the people, again, are just kind of having their own goals and aspirations in mind. And so I feel like overall, Bill Moseley, again, very much a menacing character, and he does the character very, very well. And so we'll probably talk about another character, because I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we'll be showing the spoiler cards.
Yeah, churn through them.
Yeah. So probably the other character we should talk about is Mother Firefly, played by Karen Black. And again, it's so funny because looking at her character from a distance, you wouldn't view it as kind of menacing. You feel like she is like that Real Housewives sort of like mom there. Just kind of not really the idea of like a person you'd find in a horror film.
Not some sort of murder matriarch.
Yeah, and she is very much a sexual deviant of sorts. Definitely kind of true of that. And again, kind of gets to the character's mind there. But again, she's kind of more toned down, I would say, compared to the rest there. Yeah. But still has pretty uncouth intentions.
Oh, yeah, you know, she's not afraid to get her hands dirty in one way or another.
Oh, that's a good one. That was a great line. Slap that on the episode. Do that. But I feel like overall, her character definitely does a good job there. Yeah. But again, it's kind of hard, I think, for most other characters to be in the spotlight without like having the ones that clearly are stealing the show, even though they're not intending to.
But even though she like wasn't in the spotlight, just the scene she was in and the interaction she had is like, yeah, it was really telling of a good character, even though, you know, they don't have to be in it the whole time to be a nice little supporting character of like, I'm the sweet Georgian kind of mother or whatever she was. And
I think that's definitely true of her, and I wish I could say more about her, but again, I feel like she just serves her purpose for the most part, kind of ducks out of the film and then comes back again.
She's like the multiverse Dolly Parton, where Dolly Parton's actually evil.
Dude, that's a perfect way to describe her. Holy smokes. The upside down Dolly Parton.
Exactly.
That is, I think, okay, forget what I said. Just, I'm going to splice in Aaron describing that, and it's just going to sound unnatural the way I describe her. And kind of going through the rest of the family, we also have Grandpa Hugo, played by Dennis Philpott, who the film was dedicated to, because he passed away while they were trying to release the film. He passed away in 2002, and the film came out 2003. And his character was kind of interesting, because I think, like, again, like, we were pretty quiet throughout most of the film, but I think, like, between him and Captain Spaulding, they were the only ones where you got, like, the laughs out of.
He's dumb. He's fucking dumb. He'd say some shit and it was dumb.
You didn't like his stand-up routine?
No. I couldn't really grasp what he was going for in the beginning, but the whole routine was about eating your mom's pussy.
So you're laughing now, you get it.
I'm like the opposite of Meatwad now, you know? Like, I'm laughing, but I don't get it.
Oh my god. Yeah, I feel like his character doesn't have too much going on, just kind of adding to the craziness.
He was probably the weakest link in the family for me, honestly, but
I would have to agree. I would have to agree, and I don't feel like, again, it's any fault of his own. No. I feel like he performs the performance given. I feel like it's just Rob Zombie had more fun writing for other characters,
right,
as opposed to everyone. So yep. So no diss. You did what you're doing. It's no fault on you. I felt like what he was given, he did his all, basically.
Yeah. He performed it well.
Yeah, and so last of the... Well, actually, there's two more. I know. There's a big old family.
It's a big, happy family.
Yeah, I know. We have to dive through everything. So we might as well talk about Matthew McGrory's character, Tiny. Which, Tiny's a fun character.
I like Tiny.
I really like it. And there's one thing that happens later I think we could talk about in the spoilers that's just like a defining character moment. Again, it's like... He's not given much, but just that one thing says everything about him, which I think is very well done on Rob Zombie's part, writing it the way he did. But
I wish he could have written the main characters that way. But
yes, yes,
because it is really telling that they give Tiny like one little nugget, like one little scene, and you're like, I know this character, and it's a different character, and it's a unique one, and it's cool. You know?
Yeah, and it was funny because whenever I watched it, I'm like, I know I've seen this character somewhere. And Matthew was in the movie Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton. He was Carl the Giant.
Oh,
yeah, it's because. It's hard to miss him whenever he's 7 feet and 6 inches tall.
Yeah. It didn't look like some dude on stilts. It looked like a guy that was actually really tall.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, does a great job. He's given no speaking lines, but again, it's just the physicality of his performance and what he's written as his character just works out good.
Yeah.
So I know they tried to build up his character a bit on like why he wears a mask, which I felt like was fine. I don't think it added that much to it, but he didn't need it. Like, whether you know the backstory or not, there's one moment we'll talk about later that I feel like is like, yep, that's Tiny. That's Tiny. Thank you, Rob Zombie. You have summed up everything.
Right.
But we should also talk about this. Another quiet role, Rufus, played by Robert Allen Mukes, who's serves as the mechanic.
Right.
And again, there's not much to say. He's just quiet, doing his job. Doesn't really show how crazy he is.
Right, it really took me a while. It took like a few scenes that he was in for me to realize that he was a different character from like the other brother. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is a character. Like, it wasn't because he like in the first scene he has like a bear hat on. You know what I mean?
Like a skinned bear cowl or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't realize until the part where he's like, the car's done, that I was like, oh, that's a different guy.
Yeah, for sure. And again, don't feel like it's the actor's fault. I just feel like there wasn't much left for him on the script to run away with, but
really give him
he just
lines.
serves his purpose. But I feel like overall, those are kind of the most of the main characters you see throughout this film. We could talk about like the dad, the sheriff, and everything else, but I feel like that's just kind of diving into every little tiny role, and I at least wanted to get to the main group and the family that they meet later on.
For sure.
So definitely a diverse group of characters. I suppose in some films where it's like, yeah, it's pretty much just this one character that's more defined than the rest. So definitely nice for a different change of pace there. I think one thing I definitely want to talk about that I feel like I'll definitely have more to say than other stuff is the editing of this film.
Yeah.
I feel someone described it best. I think it was James Rolfe mentioned this in his review of House of a Thousand Corpses. He says he feels like the movie was filmed like a music video in a lot of parts.
Yeah.
Which I think is true and makes sense because Rob Zombie has made a lot of music videos for his music there. And while I feel there were certain sections that were very well done, effective, and kind of help add to the overall tone and atmosphere, there was definitely some that took me way out of the film. Like, they just went so far with it. Maybe shots went on for too long. They had too many shots flowing in. Because with how the movie is, for those that don't know, it'll tell the story, then all of a sudden it'll throw in these, like, very distorted, kind of handheld recorded lines of the different characters doing something else that's not coherent with what's currently going on. It's kind of like flashbacks in a sense, I guess.
Yeah.
It just feels like a random montage of stuff. And there's heavy filters used, and they have that reverse effect where light is dark, dark is light, and it's multicolors. And I feel like while it helps add an artistic feel to the film, I feel like it goes a little bit too heavy-handed with it at a lot of points there.
Yeah.
But I also feel like if he didn't do it enough, it might not become quite as distinct as it currently is.
Right. It's
So-
really hard to find that line, especially whenever you have to like determine a lot of those things
Yeah.
beforehand, because that's how scenes transition sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I do think it was a little much in parts, but overall, I did really like the effect. Yeah, and I think it was done well most of the time. But I completely agree. There were times where it went on too long, or it was in a weird spot or something. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, and I could probably talk more about it in spoilers, but that was one thing I wanted to get right out of the gate is editing-wise, I feel like it has a heavy nodule from like, oh, well done, to you could have just played that straight,
Right.
not jumbled it up as much as you did.
I do think there are certain scenes where it works really well because it gives you like the context for what's happening without having to be like, here's a bunch of exposition. Actually, on the haunted hill of Poo-Poo Land or whatever, this happened 20 years. It just gives you a little like 5 seconds while the scene's happening. Okay, now you have the context. We don't need to explain this. We don't need to make up some bullshit dialogue.
No, I think that's definitely a fair point. And one of the other things that plays into the editing is Rob Zombie's music in the film, which again, I feel like I believe he wrote the songs for this film, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel like, again, it just matches the tone perfectly of it. It's just like anytime I hear it, I think of this film. I just feel like it just matches the tone perfectly there. So that's another kind of thumbs up there. Aside from all that stuff I splurged out, was there any other points we wanted to hit before hitting spoilers?
Yeah. In addition to editing, I think just like scenes and environments that they're in are really compelling too. Whether that's the gasoline crazy shop or whatever at the beginning with Dr. Spaulding, Captain Spaulding. Sorry, I promoted him.
Yeah.
Or I feel like the house was more or less, I feel like maybe he was trying to go for that iconic like Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. I don't think it quite hit that, but there are several different other areas that they go to where it's just like, wow, this is like a really nice scene. And I think the only fault is that like they don't stay there for very long. But like when you're there, it's like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a fair point to talk about the setting. Again, I feel like see, now I'm calling him Dr. Spaulding. I'm promoting him too. Captain Spaulding's gas station he has. I feel like just that whole environment, I just love the way it was done, from like the dreary kind of Western looking storefront there with all like the weird oddities there and everything else. I mean, even down to like the fried chicken bags, to where it's basically just these brown paper bags with like his face scribbled on there with crayon. Like, and you go from that to the Museum of Monsters and Madmen, and I just love the way it looks. The lights, everything popping up, the way they did like the crappy animatronics there. Like the whole place, like if that was a legitimate place they built, I would want to take a road trip just down there to visit it.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like, again, kind of another point for Captain Spaulding. I feel like this is just such an imaginative setting there. And while I think like the inside of the house is pretty hit or miss, I feel like some places are kind of cool. Like I loved how one of the rooms had like Creature from the Black Lagoon plastered on the side of the wall there. And there's other like settings, like that one place that almost looks like a circus top there. There's definitely a lot of interesting rooms and stuff to look at, but I feel like, you know, again, you don't look at the outside of the house and it doesn't have that same foreboding feeling like Texas Chainsaw manages to do. So,
and I do feel like they kind of tried to ham-fist that feeling in a little bit with all the like baby doll heads and stuff that are on the front of the house.
Yeah, just all the weird stuff and like the shoes. They definitely, I feel like he did, again, took homage from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to throw it into his house. And while I think it does make it look interesting, and I do love how they have like everything decorated because it takes place around Halloween, like having those paper pumpkins and skulls, like I do like how they did that there. So I feel like, again, it's interesting to kind of talk about a settings again, because typically most horror settings are kind of hit or miss with the setting. It's either like it's what you expect it to be, or
it's a neighborhood in the Northeast.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly that. With palm trees. But I feel like that's interesting. And later on in the film, their set pieces just get bigger and bigger, which we can talk about. Man, there was another point I was going to mention. I kind of mentioned setting. Oh, that's what it was. One thing I will say that's very interesting about this film is seeing the other characters outside of the main four actually have costume changes. It's interesting to kind of see the characters outside of the main four kind of go through costume changes, because typically you don't see that. I mean, it's just like the killer wears the one iconic suit there, and while it's like nice to see Captain Spaulding, you know, in his full like clown outfit there, I love how they explain why he's not wearing it later on. But also just like his shirts he has, like, you know, it's like on the back of the shirt with a hot dog on the front that says like, if I'd want to listen to an asshole, I fart. Like just stuff like that is goofy. And same with like Baby and Otis. Like you see them go through these costume changes. Even Tiny goes through a costume change. And I kind of really like that. I like how Rob made the conscientious decision to have them changing costumes all throughout the film there. So I feel like that's also one of the best things is the wardrobe department. Just, again, being able to give Baby all these different outfits. Same with Otis and same with Tiny. Same with Captain Spaulding, that they're all wearing different clothes. They're not just wearing the one same thing every single time. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to applaud Rob Zombie about. Not that there's anything wrong with people wearing the same outfit, but it's kind of like a nice change of pace just to see the wardrobe department really be at it. They're kind of changing everything else
specifically.
specifically.
Seems a little more natural, you know what I mean? Because they're going through multiple days, presumably, I guess. So and it totally makes sense. Like, you know, probably wouldn't wear the same thing there. But no, that was one thing that I kind of noticed more the second time round. Like, obviously, I remembered the first time, but it just hit me the second time, like, wow, that's actually cool. They're changing outfits. And it's, you know, it's not just regular folks changing outfits. You know, they're weird, kooky people, so they have weird, interesting...
Oh, yeah, it's, like, crazy. And, again, you're talking about Baby being kind of like that crazy, sexualized kind of character there, but not in the way that she has no character. She uses the sexuality as her character, because, again, that's kind of like her lure for most people. I mean, heck, like in one of the scenes, she's wearing assless chaps.
I was about to say, that's like her Halloween costume or whatever.
Yeah, because it's on Halloween that you see it. So, again, there's just so much I like about the film stylistically, even if kind of story-wise it's lacking thereof. I'm glad I remember that bullet point there. Was that the last bullet point you wanted to talk about? Any other stuff before kind of mentioning it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Just we talked about editing, characters, scenes.
I feel like we've been able to dissect a lot in this film, which is kind of interesting, but also kind of dismaying that we'll probably talk about the stuff that we weren't too fond of later in spoilers there. So, before diving into all those spoilers, Aaron, what you gonna rate House of a Thousand Corpses?
I rate it 1,000.
All right, that's a really good sword.
One for each corpse.
Uh-oh.
Just kidding. Out of 10, I would give this a 6.
Man, that's oddly higher than what I was expecting there specifically.
Honestly, really watching the movie like all the way till probably about the halfway mark, I was like, I'm excited to give this movie like an 8. Like this is great, you know. Captain Spaulding was awesome. I see where the story's going now, and it kind of takes some hooks and turns. You know what I mean? And like this is cool. I wish they developed the main characters a little bit more. You know, I had some criticisms from the get-go, but I was like, the editing's cool, music's cool, it's great. And then, yeah, like L plus ratio plus you fell off, you know what I mean? Like, the plot just... and it really kind of is the anchor that sinks sort of my score there down to a 6. Yeah, because the things that we're talking about that were not good, really became not good. But a lot of I feel like the way the film was edited, how it was handled, the costumes, the wardrobes, the characters that are the family, and even the side characters like Captain Spaulding are just phenomenal. I thought the music was appropriate and good. You know, so like I feel like a lot of the things it did good were just like really, really good, especially by like horror movie standards. But yeah, so like I'm not one that says a film needs a plot. I've watched my fair of art house films, but this one needed something to drive the audience for to care beyond a certain point, and it didn't have that, and it really, really tanked the score for me. But still, overall, a good experience. There's definitely things that you should watch this movie for, so I give it a 6.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair, because I gotta be honest, you're ever in a situation where you show like a friend a film specifically, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this, and it's like dead silent throughout the entire viewing, and you're like, did I just am I putting Aaron through misery? Right. I honestly was like starting to feel bad because you were so dead quiet, and again, I'm not gonna like look over and be like, you okay? But it was like one of those things that like
I had a sleeping cat on my lap. I couldn't wake him up.
No, understandable. But yeah, I'm definitely glad to hear that it's much higher than what I was anticipating you were going to give it. And don't feel bad about criticizing it, because apparently Rob Zombie is also not a big fan of this film.
Really?
I think it's especially on his end, and that he's grown as a director because he's directed a lot more films and stuff. He's like, there's a lot of flaws I see in this film, so every time I see it, all I see are the flaws.
Right.
Which I think every artist kind of goes through that, where it's hard for them to appreciate the good stuff whenever the flaws stick out like sore thumbs. But I'm honestly with you, dude, because I went through the same thing also, because my initial rating of the film, first time watching it, was also a 6. And watching it again, I was watching the beginning, I'm like, oh man, I think now that I've seen it before and I know what turns and twists are coming specifically, you know, this film is probably going to be higher than a 6 there for sure. And then the low points ended up being lower than expected, and it kind of bumped its way. It was, again, because it was going like 7. Yeah, like again, knowing what's ahead, I was like, oh yeah, I could push this up to a 7 there, but I can't in good conscience place it there. I feel like that's just overly praising the film, and while I think the style of the film is like nearly a 10 out of 10, nearly, there's just... It's not like The Shining where it has so many other stuff to pull you in other than style. With this film, the low points are really low and hard to sit through, and I felt like I was there 1,000 years during the lowest points. So if I was being cute, I would maybe, and this is being super generous, give it a 6.6, because, you know, Dr. Satan, you know, Dr. 6.66, repeating, of course, 6 2/3, if you will. But I don't know. I think, in all honesty, I have to be with you and also rate it as a 6, because I feel like as much as I want to give it a 7, I feel like I'm just more than likely going to watch YouTube clips if I really want to revisit or cut in certain scenes. And again, we'll kind of talk more about it in spoilers, but I'm with you. I think I'm going to have to share kind of that same score. Again, if I'm being cute, maybe 6.5. But even then, I feel like I as much as I want to give it a higher score, I just can't. I can't. There's too many things that hold it back for me.
You ever watch The Great British Baking Show?
A couple of episodes, yeah. Baps.
No, there's a part where I can't remember if it's Prue. I think it's Prue, where she says one of her biggest criticisms is all style and no substance. That's what this is. It's like whenever you eat one of those fondant cakes that are just like, wow, this looks like a perfect recreation of like, my butthole or whatever, but it does not taste good, just like my real butthole. So that's what this is. All style, no substance. After a certain point, it's just like, yeah, okay, you're doing cool. This is a cool scene or whatever. But like, what's the point?
I mean, to be fair, there is like some substance. It's like if you
There's
took
substance up until the halfway point.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I agree. It's like you have a cupcake and then a barrel full of icing you just drop on it.
Yeah.
I would say like there's definitely some good nuggets there, as Kevin Hart says, nuggets of truth. I think in his book, which is pretty entertaining.
In his book, Nugget of Truth.
Yeah,
Living as a
Kevin.
5'4" individual.
I have to look up the name of the book now.
Yeah, what's Kevin Hart's book?
Yeah.
Plug
Plug it in. Be sure to
sponsored.
send a check over to my house, Kevin Hart.
You know the address.
Yes, his books is I think The Decision. That's the name of it there. It's pretty enjoyable. Like I said, if you like Kevin Hart.
I like Kevin Hart. I think he was kind of blown up a little bit too big for his actual comedy chops. Maybe that's a hot take.
No,
I feel
that's
like
fair.
Some people are like, "Oh my god, he's the funniest person ever." No, he's pretty funny. Like he's a pretty funny dude. He's really good in some roles, but like he didn't. How did he become like the world's biggest comedian all of a sudden and then fell off? I don't think he needed that roller coaster. We could have kept him at a decent line.
I felt like there's like a Nick Fury for comedian stars. I'm assembling a team of comedians to be in a slew of comedy movies for at least a decade or two.
It really depends on the context Kevin Hart's in. But I feel like overall, I'd give his career like a 7.5.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But anyways, I just realized I derail it in, and we're just going down further.
Give me something else to rate.
No, yes.
I'll rate The Rock. He's a 0.
Holy smokes! We're
up.
going to get cut. Someone say my name. Oh, it's The Rock.
He's the world's highest paid actor. How can I not love The Rock? Everybody loves The Rock.
Everyone loves The Rock. Please don't hurt us, Dwayne. I love your energy drink, so I drink it religiously.
Have you ever seen Dwayne Johnson and The Rock in the same room?
No.
Conspiracy.
Absolute conspiracy.
I think it's the same person.
Speaking of conspiracies, how about we talk about the Dr. Satan conspiracy, which the group is trying to see whether he's real or not.
Yeah.
And with that ahead, we're going to jump to spoilers, just as a cliff note there. This is your time to get out.
Here's your
park
marker.
the car and just go home.
Yeah. Leave the podcast running.
Yes. Leave it running so we can get that view count up.
Put it on loop. And just abandon your vehicle on the freeway.
Yes, exactly. Aaron, how's about you talk about the thing you want to talk about most in spoiler territory?
What thing do I want to talk about most?
I don't know. What do you want to talk
I
about
thought you
most?
had something in mind.
No,
that
I
was supposed
don't.
to talk about most.
I feel like I've taken that opportunity from you. Like, let's talk about this.
I want to talk about what I've already forgotten his name. The annoying guy that's not Rainn Wilson.
Chris Hardwick's character.
Yeah, we don't even know his character's name. Bill.
I literally looked at the IMDb
Bill's
page.
the other one.
I looked at his IMDb page. No, it's Jerry.
Jerry.
Let's talk about
how many times he fucked up. All right, first fuck up. Okay, he was supposed to fill the tank with gas while they were on the road, but for some reason he only filled it up with $3 of gas whenever they stopped at the last gas station.
He's not made of money.
That was his excuse. So they have to pull over at Doctor Strange's gas and chicken joint.
I'm gonna have to Photoshop that.
So that's fuck up number one, is they have to pull over there. Fuck up number 2 is he asks the dude for directions to the haunted hill or whatever the fuck that apparently he's trying to solve the mystery of Captain Body Parts or whatever his name is, Dr. Satan. That's it. And he's got to, let's, even though we're already late to go to see this girl's dad, and she had to call already to tell him we were late, let's take a side trip in the middle of the rain, because I'm a fucking idiot, in the middle of nowhere, whenever we're already, and then fuck up number 3 is whenever they pop a tire. He was supposed to fill up the spare, apparently, and Rainn Wilson's like, oh, well, good thing you filled up that spare, because I asked you to do that. And he's like, oh, what if I didn't put it back in the car, because I'm a big fucking idiot? And he didn't, so they had to have it towed to that house. Just saying. He got them all killed. It's literally all his fault, and I wish it was just a movie of him getting tortured and dying. That the bitch lady can die, too, but I don't want her to be tortured. She could just die. I wish she just got knifed in that one scene with Harley Quinn. Or whatever her name is. Baby. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You're not wrong. It's definitely kind of one of those situations to where I feel like, in comparison to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I feel like the way they ended up getting to that house is a lot more natural and less forced, because again, they're not even going to that house directly. They're going to a house that's close by there specifically, and whenever it comes to them picking up the hitchhiker, they're just like, ew, get rid of that.
In Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
yes.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what I'm talking about.
Right,
I feel like the way they end up at the Sawyer household is way more believable and natural
100%.
There than the way they do here. But I feel like it's only because they have to have one person screwing up horribly.
Yeah.
There
over
specifically.
It seems real railroaded there.
Because it's like, again, it's one of those things, forgets gas, pulls over. I feel like it's literally baseball with them. Because, forgets gas, pulls over to gas station. Okay, well, at least they have like a cool sideshow attraction. Yeah. And Captain Spaulding seems like a very weird but fun dude. Kind of has like a nifty sideshow thing. He decides he wants to find Dr. Satan, which even Captain Spaulding's like, why are you going?
Yeah, even Captain Spaulding's like, don't go there. And he's like, it's nothing to see. Like, it would be one thing if he was like, don't go there, it's haunted or whatever. He was like, no, this is shit. Like, you're wasting your time. And he's like, no, it's already 11 p.m. or whatever. Yeah, no, we gotta go because we are on a road trip on a deadline. But I don't care about women, so we're gonna go there anyway.
Yeah, and so, he just is like, fine, here's the directions. Just go. I'm already tired of you all. And he pushes them out, and then they pull over. They see Sherry Moon's character Baby in the rain, and of course they're like, yeah, let's pick her up. It's pouring down rain, and again, pretty much believable also, even though, because everyone's like saying this is such a stupid idea, why are we going to see Dr. Satan? Which is why they ran into Baby on the road. But like, okay, fine, it was on the way there, pick up Baby, whatever, and then we're gonna be good Samaritans and drop her close to her home because it's pouring rain outside. And then 3, because of the way that they're going, and RJ shoots the tire, they're now kind of stuck in this situation because they just didn't have a tire to be like, oh, let's just fix it up there. So I definitely feel it's more railroaded as opposed to Texas Chainsaw, which feels more organic. Like, it feels like they just naturally happen to explore the next house over.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, like I accidentally stepped into hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this one, it's like, I was specifically looking for hell, and also I accidentally got railroaded there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and dragged everyone else with me.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I can understand why you're not the biggest fan of the classic character Jerry.
I didn't even like dislike him. There were parts where I liked him, you know what I mean? Especially like when he's flirting with like the Mama Firefly or whatever.
Yep, you got it down basically.
She I would like those parts were funny to me. And I, he seemed like he had a healthier relationship with his girlfriend than Bill did,
Yes, definitely healthier.
But yeah, it was just like moments. It's like, okay, I can understand like the like the gas fuck up, and that's why they started there. And then maybe Bill could be the one that was like, oh, I really want to do this for my book or something. And then maybe one of the women is like, oh, we gotta pick her up. It's a poor girl on the side, you know. If they just spread out the blame between not just one character, I would like him a lot more. But,
yeah, I think it'd definitely be kind of a lot more believable if everyone took their turn to make terrible decisions,
right.
as opposed to it falling on the one jackwagon in the group.
Exactly.
But yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely kind of egregious how moronic the character can be with his decision making. But I mean, I know it's like, oh, if he did, then there would be a film. I get that, but it's still like, I felt like maybe it could have done a little bit better.
Exactly. There are other ways you can get him there that would be more natural.
No, for sure. And one thing about the film that definitely kind of throws me through a loop, aside from the middle to end, is the fact that with the characters, once they get inside, you don't really know what's gonna happen like next. They have like these crazy transitions because again, first it's like, you know, they go in and again, I feel like they kind of antagonize the family a little bit there.
Oh, yeah.
There's especially with the less than friendly girlfriend who's like, we don't celebrate Halloween. That's for kiddies. And the family clearly loves Halloween.
And then she refuses to put on a mask and like makes everybody else not put on their mask when that's the thing they're doing. And they're feeding her. You know?
Yeah.
They hadn't done anything weird at this point. Like they're weird people, obviously, but they hadn't done anything like to antagonize them yet. But yeah, I guess
I feel like the final straw that just really kind of, I mean, I feel like they were screwed anyways, but the thing that sealed their fate is whenever they have like that talent show they put on with Grandpa Hugo's crazy bits,
which is wild. And that's actually one of the moments that I liked Jerry, because he's just like there, and then on the murder ride or whatever, he's just like, yeah, I love this stuff. he's like way into it. He's like, woo, just matching their energy. I actually kind of love that. It's like, okay, those moments are where Jerry's probably gonna save their life. He's gonna be like, yeah, I'm one of you guys.
Yeah, he's just eating up every bit. Yeah. So that's at least at the very good that it's not completely one awful character 100%. Right. It's just I'd say he's 60% awful.
Yeah, it's just like he's just so fucking dumb that he's gotten them there, and you like can't not hate him for that. Yeah,
and again, I feel like again, even though they probably would have died anyhow, while RJ's still working on the car and they're set to endure this talent show, it's just whenever Baby starts sitting on Rainn Wilson's lap that his girlfriend's like, get off of him,
right?
You know, it starts smacking her. And it's like, you already know they're not normal, like...
Why would you physically assault anyone? Like,
no.
Especially somebody who you already think is, like, weird and, like, dangerous. Why would you just, like, whenever they're being friendly? Even though it's not ideal, you're obviously jealous that there's a woman on Rainn Wilson's lap right now. It's like, bro, just, like... bitch about it in the car later. Like, don't physically assault. It's not like she was unzipping his pants and sucking her dick right in front of you. It's like, it was like, just like, bro.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I find the most interesting is the fact that, you know, they actually do fix the car for them.
Which makes me believe that, like, if that scene didn't happen, they might have escaped. Because why would they fix the car if they want him to escape? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then they're also asks the question, why is Otis and Tiny dressed up as scarecrows hanging out in the rain in front of the gate there? Right. It wasn't like, oh, they slapped Baby. We gotta.
That's true.
Yeah, and so that's the one thing I will say is, like, are they just trolling them? Like, yeah, you could leave. Psych.
Yeah.
There, because they have to, like, open the gate, which, again, I feel like I do like the scene, even though it doesn't make sense to me on why they would do that, besides screwing with them.
Right.
And I will say this. The one thing Rob Zombie is able to capture in this film is the sheer, like, sexuality and violence of the film. Like, I feel like, again, like, just the stuff they do, it really starts to show the more chaotic, evil Baby and Otis especially have. Because I feel like between all the people you see their maliciousness the most.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And it definitely kind of gives it such an unruly feeling, because not only do they have the 4 people now, but they've had these cheerleaders trapped that they kidnapped.
Right.
And again, that's kind of more serving for them to be just bodies to add to the counter. The corpse counter. Remember that? Just... Um, but I feel like because of that, it also makes the film way more disorienting. Because again, it has those editing cuts to where like something will be going on, then just shows them again just being like violent towards other people's.
Right.
And while it is very artistic, again, you know, all style, no substance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's yeah, and the fact that like even the cheerleaders don't seem to like be in one place very often. Like they're getting moved around, but like how are these people moving to different parts of the house? Later on, you see some, and then they like store each of the four people that they caught in different rooms, but then somehow like they like all the cheerleaders, I guess, end up in the shed. And then, you know, like I don't, and then even whenever they go to like kill them, you know, finally after torturing them, they drag them out to some graveyard that's like way off their property or something. And like
I feel like you ever have like one of those things where something makes sense in your head? You have like this ingenious philosophy idea in your head, and you try to write it down on paper and try to tell somebody that knows nothing about it, and to that other person it makes no sense.
Right.
That's what I feel like this film is, because I don't want to say like, you know, they're doing all this for nothing. Like, especially hearing Otis, the way he speaks and just his overall attitude towards America and society as a whole. I feel like he definitely has the more political fueled kind of reason, as opposed to Baby, I think, just enjoys just being chaotic and screwing with people. Yeah, for sure. And not to say Otis isn't. He definitely is, but I feel like he has kind of a little more reason there. And we could definitely talk more about their violence overall. But some of the kills they do are very shocking, to say the very least. Like...
You turned the slider up to 10 for, the gruesome factor. But...
for sure. Because were you expecting Rainn Wilson's fate? Like, to happen the way it did?
I don't even remember what happened to Rainn Wilson.
So
there's so much.
It's a very I would definitely say that it amps up the gore. It feels like a grindhouse
he turned
film.
into like a fishy mermaid thing.
Yeah, fish boy.
Fish boy.
The first time I saw it, I'm like, what am I looking at? Like,
well, that kind of threw me off because it made me believe that, and the line later that he delivers that he was Dr. Satan. That, you know.
Yes.
Because he, like, surgically puts them together, and you talk about inspiration, and he's obviously carving up all these people and enjoying it. And then later, whenever all the bunnies are tied, they put them in bunny suits or whatever, and they're all tied in the middle for the Halloween thing, and he's like, he puts on the skin of her father that he kills.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then he's like, you wanted to see Dr. Satan, and he, like, lifts up the map, and he's like, you meeting him or whatever. And I was like, oh, so he's Dr. Satan. And then you meet Dr. Satan, like, 30 years later.
Yeah. You definitely confirm, like, yep, he's real for sure, which is also a crazy lead up there. But it's one of those things that, you know how, like, horror films can be fun with the kills?
Yeah.
This is not one of them. This is definitely kind of more... It's not like it makes me wrench too much to where, like, how gruesome it is, but because they have the scene of, like, the girlfriend asking, like, you know, where's Bill?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Bill's a great guy.
Yeah.
He helped me out a ton. And then, like, before they reveal his fish statue resting place, they show both Baby and Otis torturing him while Brickhouse is blasting through. And it's definitely uncomfortable to watch, just how they're cutting their face with razors. They cut his hand off and are smacking him with his now cut off hand. It just definitely, it's not like most serial killers where it's like, okay, it's killed, done.
Right.
No, they definitely make you revel in the gore and carnage that they cause, which I think definitely helps add its identity, but it also, I think, makes it a little less of like a, oh man, this is a riot film.
Yeah, and like that was one thing in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like they kill most of them pretty quick, you know what I mean? But like this, like for this family, I would put like the title of torturer above murderer. Like they were, it's more
absolutely
of a torture film than it is a murder film.
Yeah, because you know, the Sawyer family is like just a cannibalistic, crazy family, but again, you don't feel aside from the dinner scene
Right.
there that they're trying to torture people, usually they're just trying to one and done them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a crazy thing for me to watch the first time round, was seeing Rainn Wilson become Fish Boy.
Yeah.
But again, I can't say I would change it, but it definitely is weird since, you know, again, it does lend itself to thinking like, oh, is Otis Dr. Satan there? Like they leave it up in the air about the mystery. And then as you continue on viewing the other people's fate, it's like our good old boy Jerry is tied up in the Creature from the Black Lagoon room, and Baby starts like interrogating him and saying, you know, like, who's my favorite actor? And again, like, he has no idea anything about her.
Right.
And then, you know, as soon as he answers wrong, she starts just scalping him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you jump over to the other girl I can't think of. This is terrible. This is terrible that we can name all the psychopaths' names, but we cannot name our survivors. I've seen this film twice.
We've even got Bill and Jerry down by this point, but it's just the two women that just, like, what are their names?
I know,
like,
they just kind of fall flat, but anyhow, whenever we go into Tiny's room where Denise is there, and she's kind of, it kind of reminded me of this scene from the Nightmare on Elm Street remake of like dressed up like the little girl there, which obviously that remake came out way years later. But it's surprisingly reminded me of that there. But it was weird because she's dressed up like, you know, like a little doll.
Like a doll, yeah.
And it's funny because like she's strapped to a bed, and then you see Tiny slump in with his cheap ass Halloween costume, literally written on his like shirt, and he just goes to sit down with his dog bowl and is eating Agatha Crispies and just eating, tries to offer food to Denise there, and then she's like, no, like starts crying because she's in an awful situation. He just shrugs, keeps eating, and again, like usually like you hear the cries of please let me go, and it's not going to lead to anything. She says, please let me go. Tiny just looks over, undoes it, and it just continues eating it. She's like, thanks. I got to get going. And
she's like, I gotta go home now.
And
he's
Tiny,
just like, okay.
Yeah, like Tiny's just like, okay. Like, and I'm like, best defining character moment in horror history. That one scene just defined Tiny's character. Because again, he's just not malicious. He's just kind of rolling with the punches. He's just like, okay. And I feel like it's not even like a sense of like Leatherface where you feel like Leatherface is just genuinely confused and equally frightened there, and it's just kind of told what to do. You feel like just Tiny's just kind of like, yeah, okay.
Tiny's really like the like a Lenny, you know, like George and Lenny and Of Mice and Men. He's just like this massive brute, but like doesn't actually want to hurt anyone. He just like likes the women because they're pretty, and he's like,
yeah, and he doesn't do anything like gross or sexual.
No, he's just kind of sitting there like, oh, you're cool, and she's like, I gotta go, and he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I felt like that moment was awesome there. Of course, it's short lived once Otis gets a hold of Denise there, but I definitely like that moment. The one part of the movie that for me was like, this is where the momentum completely stopped. Like it went to zero because I mean it's pumping up super fast. Got to zero is as soon as the dad starts asking, he's like, where's my daughter, and then calls the police. And while I did like the police investigation at Captain Spaulding's, because we got to see kind of Captain Spaulding again with like faded makeup there, and like a policeman as a pig as a policeman on his shirt there. Aside from that, whenever they go investigate the house, I didn't feel like any inch of adrenaline. Not to mention, they had the weirdest like editing stuff because it's showing like multicolored stuff, inverting it of the police cars. There's, and it's not even like the Saw level of editing where, you know, they're like zooming fast to stimulate like how fast they're going, even though they're clearly in one place. This is just kind of being artsy with no good substance.
Yeah, there's a few scenes like that too, where I thought, especially later on, where Denise is like running away in the underground caverns, where they're just like would focus on her face halfway, and you know, they were the really shallow depth of field, and you could tell she's just like standing really still in front of the camera. It's just like, why'd you go to those links for this shot? And it doesn't even look that good.
Yeah, and so that I even thought was fair. This, I don't understand why they ended up like using, I guess they use it as a transition, all the stylistic lenses and special effects just for a police car ride to the Firefly household. It just doesn't make sense, and they get out, they're investigating, kind of figuring out stuff, which that stuff's fine, but like as soon as the jig is up and they find a cheerleader's basically hanging in the work shed, and then like the Firefly family comes out, basically starts killing him, kills the head police officer, then kills the dad. This is the one shot that bothers the heck out of me.
Really? Are you gonna say the zoomed out shot where he
Yes,
dies?
it went on way too long.
That's funny. I actually, that was one of the shots that I liked.
Really,
Yeah,
really.
because of this movie, I feel like the criticism I give is that it's being artsy, and quotation marks, but it's like it's being artsy in like a very metal kind of like shot, show you this, show this, splicing in between these different scenes or whatever, and that's like the one artsy moment where they actually slow down, and then it like kind of makes you think, and it was jarring and like kind of just like to give it that much space. But it actually made me kind of like look around the scene and actually take something in for the first time in the movie since the action started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I'll give it that. I do think it was a little out of place for this movie, but I did like it.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing I have is not so much the slow down stuff, it's like the zoom out. I just felt like it went on forever, which again, I feel like is a very good defining moment for the character Otis. Because again, typically in situations where somebody's like, get down on your knees, like that's usually whenever they start listing demands. But Otis doesn't have any demands as a character. He pretty much knows what he wants and he's going to get it himself. He doesn't need stuff like that. So it's just him basically screwing with the cop there basically, and holds the gun to his forehead for the longest time till finally what feels like minutes he pulls the trigger there.
I feel like the tension there that they build, like, is he gonna pull the trigger? Because he has an option there. It's like, if he pulls the trigger, then that's the end of the cops are gonna bust him and save the kids. You know what I mean? And if he doesn't pull the trigger, is he going to pull in and torture them? Is there then a way the cop escapes and calls in for backup?
Yeah.
Is there something? But no, he executes him there. And it turns into like, that's also the death of the plot.
That is so true. That is so true, because afterwards, that's where things just become questionable as to what the Firefly family's motivation is specifically.
And I kind of wish, because obviously, like 2 cops and the girl's dad went missing, right? Because they were all killed there.
Yeah.
There was never a throwback to the police station of like, oh wow, why aren't they back? We should probably go to the last place they went and we're more heavily armed now and look for dead cops. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely.
But they didn't do that. There was no throwback to that, so there was no semblance of somebody's going to save them. And I even thought that that Captain Spaulding was going to save them, and that like almost kind of happens at the end.
Yeah, we could definitely talk about that whenever we get there. I think I think the one jarring thing we should definitely talk about is the bunny rabbit scenes and going over to like that field there, because I think stylistically it looks cool, but substance wise it's like nothing. I don't understand.
It's another
like,
leap. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the second time I've watched it, and I'm still not picking up there. Because again, Dr. Satan, the group has asked the family members, like, do you know anything about Dr. Satan? There, and they're just like, oh yeah, Dr. Satan's real. That's all they say. They dance around it, but then they have like this whole ceremony of dressing the 3 remaining people that are still alive in bunny outfits, and they drag them out to this hole where they're going to load them up in a casket. And Jerry's just mentally out of it by this point. He's just gone, not there. And they're leaning it behind, and I do like how Mother Firefly is able to have one last moment. She's like, oh, can I just tell him goodbye? And just like gives him one lovingly kiss there and says like, I wish things would have turned out different. And then just throws him in a casket. And then Jerkwad McGee, the girl, decides to run, which I completely understand.
Yeah, hey, you did something right.
Yeah, and so she's just like hauling it there while Denise is having a mental breakdown. And I do love how like Otis is like, now I have to go get her. And Baby's like, no, let me. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I think it's like, I feel like it went from the best, like one of the best scenes in the film, to one of the weakest scenes with the way it had a strong beginning and weak finish. Because I felt like, you know, you've had a lot of the jump cuts and editing there where, again, looks like handheld camera, like just showing the characters talking. But I love how they took Otis's dialogue of like, run, rabbit, run. And again, it's like correlating to like telling everybody in America they're like rabbits. They're like, you're all scared little rabbits. You know, and again, it feels like more like a natural conversation that they're able to take a snippet of and make it applicable to this current scenario. And so I thought that was well done, and the music building up and just seeing her haul it in the bunny suit. And then she ends up in the graveyard after kind of falling there. And then she's just, what? Like disoriented. And I'm like, okay, how fast is baby moving around her to make her disoriented? Like, no, keep running there. And so then whenever baby inevitably, not shockingly, tackles her and starts stabbing her through the chest there, it's just, I didn't feel a whole lot of anything.
Yeah, she didn't even really fight back for being the only person that ran, the only person that was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, yeah, she didn't fight back or anything when she was tackled. It just like stab. I would have loved to seen a struggle, and there wasn't a lot of struggle in this movie.
And
again, for all the torture there was,
I feel like it does help add a narrative to baby. Again, just how visceral she is, but I feel like we already know that how deadly she is as a person. So I felt like because of that, it kind of just was like, okay,
got it, because she had beef with her because she sat on Rainn Wilson's lap and she got pushed over or whatever, and so she was already like, I want to kill her. So I like got it, but then that was never like elaborated on.
No, I definitely not. The one thing I also don't get the deliberation on is why the Firefly family has this big kind of ritualistic sort of thing, like going to Dr. Satan, because and here's the thing, the future films, they don't talk about Dr. Satan at all.
That's probably for the best. He's interesting once you see him, but I feel like until that moment he really wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, but they had like a whole ritual set up there, from like lowering the 2 remaining survivors into a casket, lowering it down to like the pool of water there, then lowering down a lantern with like a voice recorder playing like doing that, and then all of a sudden the coffin's torn apart by these mud people hiding in the water. It just becomes quickly fantastical there, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. And meanwhile, while they're running around underground, the Firefly family takes the body of the mean girlfriend, and not to put it politely,
the bitch,
on like the pile of like crosses there, and then burns it and like does that, and it's like, okay, is this like a ritual for Dr. Satan, or like what is this? And it's just kind of more like, it looks cool. That's
100%. I feel like it's just like, yep, this is a neat scene. Wouldn't it be neat if this happened? And then there's no like real context or reason.
Yes, for sure. And I feel like that's going on the surface. So again, and even like Otis's outfit, where he has like the black cross, the white face paint there, and the red robes, you feel like they're going to explain more of what they're doing, but they don't. There. And again, whenever the bodies in the water start attacking the 2 main survivors, they don't really explain how the final girl is able to make it out. She like slivers off to the side and crawls through this cavern, and as she's walking through, she finds these 2 individuals that rip off her rabbit costume and then just walk away. Which again, it kind of gave me an Alice in Wonderland sort of vibe there with her outfit. Kind of reminded me of like Alice's outfit, rabbit hole, down there. And this is where I assume you see most of the corpses, because like of all the corpses that are lined the hallway, which again, thematically it looks cool, and I can understand why Universal decided to turn it into Halloween Horror Nights house for 2 years at Halloween Horror Nights. I haven't seen a walkthrough through it, but I might try to do so, since I never know when it's going to pop back up. But I
assume they were inspired, or maybe even shot part of it in the Cathedral of Bones or whatever.
Yes,
heard of that in
yes, like Capuchin Crypt. I think something like that
in the Czech Republic.
Like where they have like a chandelier made out of bones and stuff. I definitely got that inspiration vibes, which again looks cool, but again, it does have like those weird cut up angles, as you see Denise. I'm able to remember the name now.
D-Nice.
D-Nice. go through until she enters a room filled with like these dudes watching TV with these weird headgear stuff. Then you see like this surgeon that's attached on wires dissecting Jerry's brain as he's alive. And I thought he was Dr. Satan the first time I watched it.
Is that not Dr. Satan?
I don't think so. I think it's the dude with the goggles there. I only know that just because of, the walkthrough attraction. They showed him with like red goggles on.
I thought that was just like Dr. Satan's henchman guy that was getting things for Dr. Satan.
Yeah.
I would assume the doctor is the one doing the surgery stuff.
Yeah, like, let me see if I could try to... Okay, no, that is Dr. Satan. I'm just stupid.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that makes me feel better because I'm like... I thought it was the other guy because of the goggles and the walkthrough attraction. There was like the red goggles showing through. But yeah, that definitely makes more sense there. Who the hell's the other guy then?
just
Oh,
Dr.
the
Satan.
professor.
Oh, the professor. Of course.
Doesn't he look like a professor type to you?
He's got an X on his he's Professor X.
Well, that makes me feel better because, also spoiler alert, like I mentioned before, they don't ever talk about these characters again. This is just a first-time film.
Well,
Debut and
I do think
access.
the professor looked cool.
Yeah.
I don't think he had any reason to be there. You know what I mean? It was just like suddenly there's a bad guy, and it's like, okay, well, we just saw like 6 of them, and now it's like, okay, well, here's the bad guy that finally the killer she's running from, and then he dies like immediately after swinging his axe twice. But
No, that's definitely fair because I feel like visually it's cool, but also it's just like, okay, so Dr. Satan lived and has been hiding underground, has this entire giant crypt, is a Firefly family. I'm guessing they're connected to Dr. Satan. Are they feeding Dr. Satan? Is that part of their religion? Like, there's no connection. It's just kind of, they just are like, well, you're going to meet Dr. Satan there, which we know is in his hole.
right.
And surprisingly, Denise escapes. That was a very surprising escape from the hulking professor with the axe there. And I feel like, again, it's not so much Deus Ex Machina, but I don't believe how she was able to escape there just by coincidentally avoiding the swinging axe.
And then he swings into the support pillar, which causes a collapse that kills him but not her, and also opens an escape hatch, which would be more interesting. I mean, I thought the shot was visually cool, but didn't make any sense that she literally just like appears from the earth. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree with that. I just feel like it's cool, but also just on a narrative standpoint, I just feel like from the point, they say you're going to meet Dr. Satan, that's where things really get off the rail. And again, visually it's cool, but substance-wise, not a lot to get there. I will say I do like the ending a little bit. It's not like I love the ending, but it's like, I like the ending fine. With Denise like stumbling out there, wandering through, all bloodied up, bruised up, everything. And Captain Spaulding happens to be driving on this road, who has, again, remained morally ambiguous throughout the film. Because, again, whenever the police ask him questions, he doesn't cover for the Firefly family. He tells them exactly everything he could see on his side of the woods there. And he picks him up, and I love the line. He's like, I need to see a doctor. He's like, oh yeah, I'll take you to a doctor. And as it's driving there, Otis rises from the back of the car seat there.
With a knife.
Yeah, and then grabs Denise, and then it cuts to her being dissected on by Dr. Satan. And then the end pops up with a question mark. And I guess just shows that, yep, Captain Spaulding is in cahoots with the Firefly family a bit.
Which is weird, because he did come up in a conversation with them, and they were, like, roasting him.
Yeah, because they're like, where'd you hear about Dr. Satan? And it's like, yeah, we heard it from Captain Spaulding. He's like, he's willing to say whatever for his fun house. Just, like, brush him off there. But again, there's, like, really no hints that they're together.
Right.
Aside from the fact that that Captain Spaulding, I'd probably say, out of the entire group, is the most grounded. I would say, out of the group, but again, has a very demented side as well.
Oh, yeah.
He's willing to lead into. So that was like one of those things. I remember writing in my review that I was disappointed. I was surprised at how I was disappointed. Like, oh, Captain Spaulding's not a good guy. Because again, he seems like a fun dude to hang out with,
and
specifically.
I thought he would, and that's kind of like, okay, so as soon as the shift of who the bad guy is got shifted to the family, like really as soon as they picked up the hitchhiker, I was like, okay, this is where the bad guys come in, and it's not Captain Spaulding. I was like, he's gonna come back in the end for something, you know what I mean? They can't they wouldn't just have established all this shit about him and then just never bring him up again. So it's like, I bet he saves them. Like he's like, like, you know, something happens, and so then whenever the cops came and they were asking him about it, I'm like, okay, well, this is how he knows that they're there. Cool, okay, he's gonna like do something to save them somehow. And then the cop, or you know, the cops just win, and this is how he was brought up again. Cops don't win. I was like, okay, and they never mentioned the cops again, and it was like, okay, so the cops aren't coming back, I guess. So I was like, okay, well, I'm waiting for Captain Spaulding. He's got to show up again, and he does show up again. And I was like, okay, I didn't quite imagine him to save her this way, just coincidentally, but that's cool. Yeah. And then, whenever he popped up from the back, whenever Otis popped out of the back, I was like, ugh. And then she just, and there's like all this editing, and then she wakes up, and it just seemed like a dream sequence. And I was like, did that even happen? Did she just imagine all that? I don't even know. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, that just reminded me of something that I completely forgot about the first time. The dream sequence. Do you remember her dream sequence before she woke up strapped to the bed? Like the weird colors in front of Dr. Sage's grave and a hand popping out with like this gorilla type figure. Yeah. Apparently that was Skunk Ape. That was a character that Rob Zombie had established in the movie and did nothing with it. Apparently he didn't have any time. Because you heard about like, because that was one of the other weird moments in the film is they would interview these random people, whether it was about that or just like where the kids are. It's just like such disorienting stuff,
right? And that's because she was the one that had a weird dream thing before, and then they used like that same editing for getting her back into the cave. I was like, was that a dream? Like, I don't know. Did that happen? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre and random there that it tends to, again, it just kind of throws everything out of whack. So that was a weird thing that I don't feel like needed to be in the film there. That was like, you could cut that out and it wouldn't affect the film whatsoever.
Right. I will always criticize a movie for making me question if something was a dream or not. In every movie with one exception, and that's Inception.
Yes. Yes. I was about to ask.
But that's because the whole plot is about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the whole plot is about dreams. It's not just device
and
used.
Waking up from them. So, like, yes, of course. That's a good way to end it. Every other movie that's just like, oh, was it a dream or not? I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Fuck you.
Oh my god, it's so good. I am curious to dissect more of like this reaction I got from you. But whenever Captain Spaulding saves a girl and then turns out, oh no, he's just a vehicle to return her back. You went
literally a vehicle.
You went like, so were you saying like, were you disappointed?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think my reaction was largely to that. Yeah, that just him with the knife and like just weird slow motion. Like he was just gonna slash her in the back seat.
Like it's more of cringy of how they did the surprise reveal.
Yeah.
Got it. That's totally fair. Yeah, it was one of those things that again I thought the same thing too. Like, oh well, maybe Captain Spaulding saves them. That'd be kind of a cool device. Someone that's a little demented isn't really that bad of a guy, and it's like, oh no, he's pretty crummy. So we kind of know, even though he stays morally ambiguous, he kind of leans more towards the bad side than good. But
even then, like, I don't know, maybe he was just trying to save his bacon. We don't know how Otis got in that car or why he was driving by there. in the first place,
don't know the context of the scene, and you never will.
Right.
So I feel like, again, I feel like we've consistently have stated a lot of high praises, which you're able to do without spoiling stuff, but then once you're able to spoil what's in the movie, that's where the real kind of ugly side starts to pop up for me. So I feel like all your criticism I've pretty much have been no for you. I feel like this is the one film that I feel like we've been very in sync with.
Yeah. Because even as you were bringing up things, I was like, yep, I was going to say that. Yep.
yeah. It's one few time where it's just like we're hitting all the same bullet points, pretty much exactly the same. Before getting kind of close, since we're wrapping things up, was there anything else you felt like you needed to talk about or mention about this film?
Boy, not even. No, I mean, there's so many things, there's so many sets and stuff that's like, normally these would be things I'd be talking about, little scenes, little moments or whatever, but it's just like, there was so much. I felt like he tried to jam in so much. Maybe it's because it was his first movie. You know, he's like, I gotta get all these little details that are swarming around in my imagination. That, yeah, it really did just muddy the whole film experience for me. But overall, I mean, I think it's cool. I think there's great characters, and I would recommend that somebody that really likes gruesome horror, you know, that kind of aesthetic, and is not squeamish, you know, yeah, give it a watch. You know, it was fun. It's just, yeah, I wish the ending was more tied into a bow instead of just unraveled. But
no, I think that's definitely fair. I feel like this film, like if the narrative had been stronger, it easily would have been like the upper echelon of ratings there. But because narratively it starts to kind of take a nosedive midway through the film, I can't in good conscience give it like a high stellar rating there. Yeah, but I mean, aside from that, I feel pretty exhausted. I was very surprised we were able to talk about as much as we were in this film. Yeah, I think it's teaser time.
Okay.
Teaser time.
Are you gonna tease me?
I'll try to.
You got a movie all figured out?
I feel like we've been on a sequel streak since we've had this podcast going on for almost a year, you know. Not quite there, but almost. I think it's time to revisit a friend of sorts.
Oh, an old friend, huh?
Yes, an old friend indeed it is.
An old bloke.
Yes, an old bloke it is.
What?
Oh, dirt. Which is actually funny. I'm doing that accent because
American Werewolf in London too.
No, but it is in the UK. It is UK based.
That's scary enough.
Yes, it's horrifying.
Ooh,
practically.
Just think of the teeth.
Yes, and it is a sequel to a film that, spoiler alert, we've already done.
Okay.
And you find it very. You'll find yourself on pins and needles.
Oh, is it Hellraiser 2?
You betcha, it's Hellraiser 2.
Interesting.
I don't know how I came to that conclusion. It's like I chose randomly.
Whoa!
Oh! Anyways,
Roll the dice.
I feel like it's time to revisit our friend Pinhead and the gang and see what all they've been up to with their little lament configuration. Yeah. So aside from that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you all again next time when we're popping the scary with Hellraiser. Or should I say adieu?
Adieu.
Adieu, adieu.
Adieu.
Adieu. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.